Keep it exciting. Well, good evening. Welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday, May 9th, 2018 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission is a citizen advisory group to the City Council, charged with making recommendations concerning land use plans, planning processes, and/or on matters of plan implementation. All regular meetings of the Planning and Zoning Commission are recorded for record retention and transcription. The following is the official agenda of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Discussion and commission action will be limited to those items on the agenda. Any citizen who wishes to address the commission shall first be recognized by the chair and shall give his or her name and address for the record. If a citizen wishes to read documentation of any sort to the commission, he or she shall first seek permission from the chair. Oral testimony may be restricted to no more than 3 minutes per person. So agenda item number 1 is the roll call and disclosure of conflict of interest, ex parte communication, and site visit. So Aislinn, if we could have you call the roll, and if each commission member would state their name and any disclosure that they have.
Bill Hancock.
I'm Bill Hancock. I reside in the Lewis and Clark neighborhoods. I did a site visit to agenda items number 3 and 4, and I have nothing else to report.
Jack Moore.
My name's Jack Moore, and I live in the Old Town District. And I did a site visit to agenda items 3 and 4, and I have nothing else to report.
Sarah O'Connor.
My name is Sarah O'Connor. I reside in the College neighborhood, and I have nothing to report.
Julia Sanders.
I'm Julia Sanders. I live in the South Park area. I completed a site visit to agenda items 3 and 4 and have nothing further to report.
Jared Burnt.
My name is Jared Burnt. I live up in the Highland area. I have done site visits on items agenda number 3 and 4 today.
And yourself.
I'm Ryan Satterfield from the Highland area. Also did a site visit for items 3 and 4 and nothing else to report.
And Sean Hargreaves is unexcused this evening.
Very good, thank you. All right, agenda item number 2 is the approval of minutes. Commissioners, any discussion on the minutes? If none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I second the motion.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Moore.
Yes.
Sorry, O'Connor.
Yes.
Hancock.
Yes.
Burnt.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Sanders.
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes, motion carries. Agenda item number 3. This is a public hearing. This time has been set aside for the Commission to hear comments from the public regarding a request by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Boise, represented by Russ Phillips of Insight Architecture, for a conditional use permit to expand the school at 540 North 7th Avenue. The campus is located in a residential high-density zoning district, which allows schools through the conditional use permit process. So with that, we will open the public hearing, and if we could hear from the applicant.
Stand here?
That would be great, yes.
Okay. Would you like 8.5 by 11s?
I think we do have maps in our packet here, so.
Okay. In that case, I do have well, you've conducted the site.
And if you would just start by stating your name and address just for the record.
You bet.
Thank you.
I'm Russ Phillips with Insight Architects, 2238 Broadway Avenue, Boise, Idaho. And also with me tonight for questions is Father Henry Carmona. Let's see, and we've reviewed the staff report, and we agree with the findings. I'll keep this very brief since I think everyone's visited the site and the staff report seems comprehensive. Just very briefly again, this is kind of a master plan that we've developed for St. Anthony's. This is the existing church, the sanctuary, the office building. We're just completing a connection that provides ADA access to the basement, the main level, and second floor of the office building. The school building that's proposed is located right here. The gray building's the existing school. And this is a replacement project. Enrollment's not increasing, but under the master plan, we're trying to get classrooms out of some outbuildings all into one building. Right now, there's classroom upstairs and a addition off the gym, and there are classrooms in the basement of the office building. And for obvious reasons, that's not ideal. So this goal is to move them build 4 classrooms, put them into that building, and then also the existing school doesn't have any ADA restrooms, so we're adding a couple ADA restrooms, and then also the principal has had her office and one of the other staff upstairs in the office building here. We're moving them into the main building as well. As far as impact to the neighborhood, I just brought a couple graphics, and you've all, of course, sounds like you visited the site, but to the north, it's kind of a mix of more commercial type use in this zone, and then to the east is residential. To the west, again, is kind of a little more commercial, transitional type uses right now. That's another shot of the west. We also, under this connection project here, we've augmented the size of the parking lot. So most of the traffic occurs out on 7th Street, again, kind of away from the residential neighborhood. So we're kind of reinforcing parking here. And a lot of the school drop-off and so forth happens on 7th Street out in this less densely neighborhood. So right now we stand for any questions.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions? Perfect, thank you. Now if we could hear the staff report, Carl.
Good evening, Commission. Carl Anderson. I'm a senior planner here at the City of Pocatello, for the record. Again, tonight you have before you for consideration a conditional use permit to expand a legal non-conforming structure by up to 50%, or legal non-conforming use by up to 50%. The applicant is the Roman Catholic Diocese of Boise. They are the applicant submitting the request for CUP to expand the existing Holy Spirit Catholic Community School building to accommodate, as stated by the applicant, the relocation of 4 existing classrooms from adjacent outbuildings into what will be the primary school building, or in addition to the primary school building. The subject site is located at 540 North 7th Avenue. It's located on the same parcel as St. Anthony's Church. The property is located within a residential high-density zoning district and within the original town site overlay. Municipal Code 1701-170A-3C lists C standards that must be met for the expansion of a legal non-conforming use. Specifically, the lot was legally created and new development will be compliant with current standards set forth by Municipal Code. The proposed development has been designed to minimize potential impact on public health, safety, and general welfare, and is within the parameters of as outlined by Municipal Code in 1701-170B3 and detailed within the staff report. Public notice was mailed to political subdivisions and to adjacent property owners of the property on record of the subject site on April 24th. The agenda and supporting documentation were posted on the city's website on May 3rd, 2018. A sign was posted on site on April 25th, and since the time of the completion of the staff report, 1 letter has been submitted in support of the application, which you have in front of you and was given to the Commission at the pre-agenda meeting. based upon a review and analysis done by staff of the application and the supporting material, the subject site and surrounding area and applicable municipal code sections, planning staff finds that the application meets all applicable standards, assuming the following conditions are met. All outdoor lighting shall meet the requirements as provided under Municipal Code Section 1705-420 and 1704-220D8. Item number 2 is any standards, regulations not here noted, but applicable to the proposed development shall be strictly adhered to. And item 3, any activities requiring a separate development or building permit shall comply with applicable regulations. So with that, I'm happy to stand for questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions for Carl? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will now gather public testimony, and so we'll go into that portion. We will start with any who might want to speak in favor of the application. Those that would like to give any testimony, if they would come to the microphone, state their name and their address, and then there is a time limit of 3 minutes. So any in support of the application? With none, any neutral on the application? With none, any opposed to the application that would like to speak? Very good. We will close the public hearing. Commissioners, the items before you, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, having gone out and looked at the site and what's there and looking at the plans that they have submitted, it seems as if they're going forward in an organized manner, that they certainly have a need for what they're doing, trying to provide a better environment for their children who are there and are doing it in an intelligent and appropriate way. And so with that, if there's not any other discussion from the panel members, I would move to approve the application from the Roman Catholic Diocese of Boise for a conditional use permit application for the expansion of a legal non-conforming use, and with a finding that the application does meet the standards for approval under Chapter 17.01.170A3 and 17.02130 of the Pocatello Municipal Code. And I would make that recommendation subject to the recommendations and conditions that have been proposed by the staff.
Very good. It's been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Excellent. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Hancock,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Burnt,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion carries. Agenda item number 4, preliminary plat, Big Rocks Division 2. LandQuest Development, LLC, represented by RMES, has submitted a request to subdivide .89 acres, more or less, into 4 residential lots located on Dullastone and Basalt Drives. So if we could hear from the applicant.
Good evening, commission members. My name is Mitchell Greer. I'm with Rocky Mountain Engineering and Surveying here in Pocatello, 600 East Oak, excuse me. So this project is actually one of maybe the only subdivisions in Pocatello back in the early 2000s that we weren't doing. This was done by a company out of Logan. They were somewhat successful with their development, but the economy turned and the project halted, and so a local developer has then purchased this property and has started to kind of develop it, pick up the pieces as to where that project left off. So you can see this was kind of part of the original subdivision. These are all platted lots that kind of go around the rim lot. It's Dullastone Drive. You guys are familiar with it if you've driven up there, as you stated. The area that we're talking about is basically on the north end of what has been developed on Dullastone that will ultimately create a loop through the project. Kind of one of the unique things about this particular area, or that's different than what we might see, we're proposing only 4 lots. I think that acreage might be off somehow. Maybe we got it calculated incorrectly. Yeah, 0.8. That sounds better. So we're proposing 4 lots, but the interesting thing is when this development came through, I'm not sure how it happened or what happened, but some lots got developed without the infrastructure, essentially. So that's kind of maybe what's facilitated the need for more of a actual subdivision rather than a short plat that we would normally propose in a situation like this. So it's fairly straightforward. We're having to come back and pick up some of the utilities back southerly of our project and extend them up into this development, which, you know, in normal circumstances might have already been there. So the 4 lots are kind of this red area that you can see in this L shape. These are developed lots. There's actually, I'm not sure if the house is constructed there now or not, but there was a home that was built here and they had to get some services into that as well. So curb and gutter has to be extended up through a portion of this area as well as the utilities. And then on beyond what we're proposing. So in the future, you know, there'll be the remaining portion of the lot, which will kind of follow the normal subdivision process. But initially we were going to develop just a couple of the lots adjacent to the subdivided lots, and then when it couldn't be a short plat and how it kind of worked out, then that's why we decided to add a couple more lots. So it's just a small phase to get some homes started in there and generate some more interest in this particular area, I guess. So hopefully this time we'll be a little more successful, and we'd ask for you guys to approve it. I did want to note, just for the record, one of the staff comments was, for future reference, additional divisions will have to retain its own stormwater. So one of the other interesting things about this particular development is Merrill and
number 29.
Staff understand the stormwater in this development is fairly unique in that it didn't get extended up through the streets. There is no really developed stormwater system per se that comes up through the development. There's only a couple of catch basins on the lower portion of the road. And so what that statement, although it seems a little not a big deal, it kind of is a big deal, because what that's going to mean is future developments, we're going to be taking a building lot, digging a hole in the ground and making a pond. That's what that statement means. So we hope that we can find another solution where we can maybe utilize some of the existing infrastructure that's there, modify that. You know, they constructed some substantial ponds along the canal in the earlier divisions, and we'd like to be able to make use of those, you know, that existing infrastructure rather than sacrificing building areas, you know, that are certainly needed and help make projects more successful. And sometimes when you take a building lot, put a pond on it, it's maybe not the greatest thing to have in the middle of the neighborhood. I think as even Mr. Satterfield, we've done on some of his projects, and sometimes they're maybe not the best use of that land. So anyway, that's all I have unless there's questions.
Very good.
We'd ask that you approve it.
Any questions for Mr. Greer? All right, thanks, Mitch. Carl, if we could have the staff report.
Carl Anderson again, with the City of Pocatello Planning and Development Department, for the record. The application you have before you is for the preliminary plat for the Big Rocks Division 2, submitted by Gary B. Ratliff of Lions West Development, represented by Rocky Mountain Engineering and Surveying, for 4 residential lots, which encompass 0.89 acres more or less. The subject property is located on Dolostone Drive and North Basalt Drive. The zoning of the proposed division is residential low density, which requires a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet for a single family home. The smallest lot being proposed is 7,840 square feet, and the topographical slope for all proposed lots is less than 15%. The proposed subdivision will be served by Dolostone Drive and Basalt Drive. A portion of Dolostone Drive is located within the Boulder subdivision as identified by the applicant to the south and is not improved. All right-of-way improvements and connections, including the remainder of Dolostone Drive, will need to be constructed prior to the recording of the final plat. Staff has reviewed the application and finds that the proposed Big Rocks Division 2 subdivision is compliant with all applicable standards of City Code 16.20.050, assuming compliance with the conditions listed in the staff report. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Carl. Any questions for Carl?
I don't. I would like to see if we have the city engineer here, if he would be willing to speak to the issue brought up by Mr. Greer.
Okay. Thanks, Carl. Merrill, could you come forward?
Merrill Quells, Public Works Development Engineer for the City of Pocatello.
Merrill, I was just hoping that you could address the condition number 29 that Mr. Greer talked about. I understand this is preliminary plat, and this is something that needs to be decided, but the issue about the future development will need to retain its own stormwater.
That is correct. The ordinances since this subdivision was put in, as I said, it was in the early 2000s. The way we view the stormwater and take care of stormwater and that, the new manuals and so forth, things have changed, for one. The particular subdivision in question, too, does have a unique situation where the retention ponds at this point parallel the Fort Hall irrigation project. And the lower catch basins are down. There's not a full system there. That comes up onto the top and so forth. Mr. Greer is correct in his saying that with that comment and the subdivisions and the way things are laid out is that yes, there probably will be a lot. It's just like any subdivision out there. There's got to be an area to take care of the stormwater and retain, detain, and take care of that in these areas. So this subdivision and the future phases will be no different. We're trying to work with this particular phase, or Division 2 of the Big Rocks, to accommodate the water, but we've also asked and have not seen any information from the reports at this point to verify that there's enough room for the stormwater in the existing ponds that are down below. So I'm sure that that's being worked on, and we will see that generally at the final phase when we get the stormwater report, and that information will be there, I'm sure.
Thank you, Merrill. It's helpful.
I have a question for the applicant. The city has a lot of conditions set forth. I just want to know that you understand and agree to these conditions. There's quite a bit there.
Yeah, seems like our projects get a lot of conditions. We like that. I think all the conditions for the most part are standard. There's about 6 or 7 there at the end that are maybe project specific, and we don't have any issues with any of those other than the one I raised about the stormwater pond. And one thing about that stormwater pond is essentially that street that we're developing probably should have already been developed and fed into that existing system, for the most part. So there is some street that we're extending, but we believe that's should have been accounted for in the earlier designs.
Can you address, do you have calculations on capacities for the existing ponds? Do we know where they're at?
Yeah, I mean, what I think we're hopefully going to be able to do with Merrill is maybe work with Merrill to analyze those existing ponds. I have no idea what's down there or how they've been done, and then maybe do some improvements to those ponds to make them more, certainly accessible for the city and for the neighborhood, whoever is using those, so that we could potentially utilize some of that infrastructure for our project. So, again, there is some areas within this project that could be utilized for stormwater and stormwater disposal, but those areas maybe aren't the best places to place stormwater. So hopefully, as we move forward, again, this is kind of outside of our realm, but there was a condition, and so that's why I brought it up. But we would like to be able to, again, rather than spreading that infrastructure out, rather than, again, now we're developing new infrastructure and leaving old infrastructure that's maybe substandard, as Merrill mentioned, maybe we can work together to come up with a plan to utilize what's there and make it effective for the whole subdivision. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish with that statement that I made. So,
who is the owner of the property where the ponds are currently?
I believe, we could click, we can get the ownership, but I believe it's the Boulders Homeowners Association.
Okay, that's right.
So.
Other questions?
I think certainly it would be to their benefit to have the ponds improved as well.
Correct.
So,
thank you, Mitch. Merrill, can we ask you one more question? So, question is, with this statement here, would this statement imply that they could not improve those lower ponds and make them comply with the current standard in order to serve future phases?
I think I've tried to write that, and it's broad enough that will allow a lot of flexibility, but the stormwater will need to be brought into compliance to today's standards for anything added.
Okay. Perfect. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the preliminary plat subject to the staff's conditions.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by O'Connor. Aislinn, would you call the vote?
Hancock,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Burnt,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Satterfield.
Yes. Motion carries. That concludes our meeting. Thank you.